Kao the Kangaroo is a reboot from the original PlayStation Kao the Kangaroo and Kao the Kangaroo Round 2, where you play as Kao the Kangaroo. Kao 2022 was developed and published by Tate Multimedia, unleashed on the world on 2022. There's not a lot to unpack here, but I'm on a mission. I'm Dark Lord Elliot. Now, the first Kao game I ever played was Kao 2, around 2018, but I didn't finish it, so my opinion of this game is fairly recent and definitely not the same as one who had the original disc of Kao or Kao 2, lost it, found it his or her mom sold it at a yard sale, he or she missed it, bought it on eBay 10 years later for $5, etc, etc. I have no fondness for this game other than what I did play back in the later years of the 2010s, but that was released 20 years ago now in 03. Now, it's time to take a step into the modern world of Kao and see what shenanigans he's dragging us along to now. The game starts with Kao having a nightmare about his sister, Kaya, who went off to save their father from whatever evil was afoot. When Kao wakes up, he falls out of his hammock and his mom is just there hanging in the laundry. That's about as much of the story as I care to talk about because this game's story is so basic as it is. You can probably guess at it and get it right. Instead, I'll just say that during the first act of the game, there wasn't a cutscene that played that didn't make me physically cringe. So instead of a synopsis, here's a bullet point highlight. Kao has a dream, sees a coach, gets a wrench for an inventor, goes to another island, breaks their business, beats some sense back into the leader, does that twice actually. You then go to a floating island where Kao finds his sister and dad more or less unharmed, and then beats the crap out of some shopkeep. That's the game, and I really don't care. Your missions are all supposed to be linear, but you can collect enough of the runes to access a couple missions earlier than you're supposed to. I don't really get why they didn't just put numbers over the level. That alone would have cleared up any confusion I've had about the game. But no. At the very least, I can say that this game has some of its priorities straight. The story is clearly half-baked, and the one-take voice acting really helps to sell that this game clearly wasn't ready to be released.
That was crackin'! You rang him like a bell, coach. Those were some pro moves. I'm agreed that I should go help her.
She what?
I bet these are the oldest one's former students.
Actually, there are even parts of this game that, while Kao is being chased, if you turn the music off, the scene is completely silent. How the hell do you miss something like that? Never mind 3 times. And on that note, even the music in Kao isn't that good. Most video games, I'd say that if I never noticed the music, it was good, because it blended with the background and didn't interfere. Kao's, however, is bordering on annoying because of all the areas in the game that you start to notice it. What's worse, this game only looks good at all because of the Unreal Engine that it runs on. The shadows specifically look really nice and detailed, only for that simple fact. If this were running on the original Kao engine, this wouldn't look even a quarter as good. And while we're here, the models do look okay, I guess, but the fact of the matter is they don't look right. Take Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, 2016. In that game, Crash, while being a humanoid, has highly detailed fur, but here in Kao, Kao just looks like a fat human with body paint on, big ears and shoes that look like kangaroo feet. So, okay, the game doesn't really look all that good, and it's really the engine that's making the game look as good as it does. But that doesn't matter if the game is fun, right? Well, I would have to say no. Kao 22 is not really that much fun. The game fights you every step of the way and makes the journey that much harder. You have invisible walls on some areas, no invisible walls on others. As for fighting, while they did implement a ground pound move, its usability is questionable at the best of times. There have been times I used it to take out 5 frogs before the game really even started, but then other times it appeared to not do much damage at all. They really dropped the ball with the elemental gloves too. If you're going to have fire and ice for the gloves, you really should have made it so that specific enemies were weak to those specific elements while you have them. From what I can tell, the element doesn't affect the gloves at all aside from platforming things. Not to mention the last one you get is wind. Seriously? Wind? All it's used for is to grab things and then drag them back to you from within a cave. It's so situational. Furthermore, this game seems to be modeled after Super Lucky's Tale with infinitely respawning coins. Actually, no, that's not fair to say. Let me rephrase. Kao the Kangaroo, released in 2022, is a more or less copy of New Super Lucky's Tale, released in or around August 2020. A year and a half isn't that long to have a working knockoff game, especially when you already have an established character and franchise. It's like they exhumed Kao to be the direct competition to Lucky by making it basically the same game with less features. New Super Lucky's Tale is actually fun, if a bit cringe. Should I even mention that assets were still loading in as the cutscenes started or were panning? I'm used to seeing things like this on old worn-out PS2s where the laser is going, but Kao is on my NVMe drive. There is no excuse for this whatsoever, and I'm sick of game developers not testing anything and patching their way into what they call a finished game. In summary, this game isn't that good and really not even that fun. I found it to be bearable because I had a goal I was working towards. Granted, it was an easy goal, but others probably don't want to play a bad game for completion. If you have no intention of buying this game, good. Don't. Kao 2022 isn't great and likely never was nor will be. At the time of recording, Kao 2022 has been out for a little over 8 months and it's still got plenty of glitches, oversights, and other garbage that should have been dealt with before we, the player base, saw Beta 1. I suppose one could call this comedy or satire, but I call this laziness. Asking $30 for this is quite honestly shameful, and I do not condone it. Kao 2022's price will be fair at $10, but even that's a stretch. That said, Kao 2022 gets a 2 out of 10. What Kao does right, it does well enough, but those are few and far between. The only good things I can honestly say about Kao are that it never crashed on me once, thanks again to the Unreal Engine, and none of the achievements were bugged. That said, this isn't art, this is laziness disguised as an old video game mascot. I'd even go as far as to say this is grave robbing. Dark Lord Elliot, we're definitely done here. Do not play this game.